Welcome back to the Moisture Farm, everybody. We have some tournaments to talk about. We got some deck lists from these that we'll check out, compare to some of the stuff that I've been trying out on the channel, and take a look at some trends, some stuff to pick up since the last time we talked tournaments. Shout out once again to SWU-Competitive You guys can check this out. This is such a cool resource to see what's going on in the competitive meta, and check deck lists and do what we're doing today. So we'll pick up right where we left off with this update. End of November, 1st of December. Got some kind of smaller stuff. Once again, we're not really full swing in the season of competitive, but we've got some smaller stuff where we can pick up on some trends here. So we've got a smaller tournament in Sweden, 44 players, classic Sabine ECL, taking a win there. Seeing some Ray Tarkentown back in action. Kind of disappeared at the beginning of this set, but we'll be seeing more of that, along with Bosk Green has been making its way in. And we've got our Anakin Blues and Django's that we have been keeping an eye on. New leaders that are having their influence in the meta. Han 1 Yellow, which I've mentioned before, I think has a chance to kind of be the kingmaker of the game right now. This deck is just really strong and got so much stronger with the Boba suspension. So I'm expecting seeing a lot more of this going around. But let's take a look at some of these. We'll just keep going here along the smaller ones. We've got a big PQ that we'll talk about and go into some of those deck lists. Here, 44 or 45 players in Warsaw. Django, Ray, Tarkin. Look at 4 Tarkentowns here. In this top 8, and I definitely see Tarkentown getting played so much more. Obviously, Django Tarkentown has good synergy. Quinlan Tarkentown kind of has a similar thing going where they have a potential to ping your turn 1 play and then snipe it with Tarkentown, so just kind of able to control the board early. Tarkentown is going to be seen a lot, I think, come big PQ season. There's a lot of decks that are running it, and you're not at such a disadvantage now to like Boba ECL or the other 25 bases in general, besides Sabine. I think you just get a lot better now with Tarkentown. Still seeing Sabines in top 8. Bosk Blue is the king of hard control. If you even want to try hard control, I think Bosk Blue and maybe Iden Blue for hard control are your best bets. Definitely, we've talked about Bosk. That's not going anywhere, I don't think. Another one in Warsaw, 33 players. Django's, Anakin. We've got some Cad Bane Tarkentown popping in this top 8. This is actually a rare base Bosk, which is interesting. I wish we had the deck list here because I'd love to see the application of what they're using Pow City for, and what they feel they're getting value-wise that makes it worth the loss in base health. Because as I've put on this channel, like when I'm going up against Bosk Blues, getting them with like to that 20-25 HP on their base happens, like that's, you get within that realm pretty decently, and then it's just a matter of whether or not they can stop you from finishing it off. I think that happens. It feels like how every Bosk Blue game goes for me. Is I push damage up to like 20-25, and then a Super Laser Blast, an Avenger, something comes in to stop the bleeding, and then they start to dominate, and it flips from there. So, I'd love to see a deck list for that. Moving on to 32 players in France. Palp Green making its way into a top 8. I'm so surprised at how popular this deck has become. I think it was just one of those decks that played so bad into Boba, and it plays really bad into Sabine, or any aggro for that matter. This deck just struggles. And it surprises me that the Boba suspension has drawn this out more. That's something I did not expect. But it's super, super popular right now, and I do think it's pretty decent. There's, some cards, and, we'll just take a look at the deck list here since we've got it. You've got 1-drops like Salacious that have helped. Masameda is, a nice little splash in there. And you've got, Poggle. So you like these set 3 cards that kind of come in and help with the token and the sacrifice fodder going on. I know my lighting just changed drastically with the white screen. So some set 3 players I think have helped Palpatine, but I'm surprised at how much more popular it got just because of that. 3 Vaders is pretty classic. Ambush Space Unit that creates the droid token. I think this is a really good addition to that shell. And top out with Devastator. I really like Traitorous in Palp Green. I do want to try some iteration of Palp for the channel. I don't know if it's going to be double green. I think double green is it's so tough. I think double green's probably the strongest version. But I can certainly see how blue makes more sense and gives you better odds. But that green ramping, I'm not sure. I haven't really had any experience playing this deck, or this leader for that matter. But it's definitely coming soon to the channel. We've got a Yoda ECL in this top 8. Take a look at this deck list too, because we just did Yoda Vigilance, double blue Yoda, and I really like it, but I can see some weak spots. What's interesting about green is that it helped. Obviously, green as a color is naturally just going to bring it into the mid-range category, and we've got some really strong outside of this is actually a version of Yoda Green that's not running any ramp. There are no resupplies. There's no ramp in this deck, which is interesting, but I like it because of our 3-drop situation here. We've got Yodas. They're not running any Jedi lightsabers either, but Yoda's a solid turn 3. You got Sentinel turn 3. You're My Only Hope, which I caught a little bit of heat for not putting in my Yoda deck for the channel, but I think after further testing, I think it's going to make its way in. Solid 3-drop Sentinel, the Shielded Village Protectors, Perilous Position. So like all of these in our 3-drop makes sense for not running resupply. There's no sideboard here, but I wonder if that is sideboarded into certain matchups, maybe like against Palpatine, or some other hard control. We'll see. Bright Hope is a great reason to play green. Ayla Sakura is a great reason to play green. And I think the way this deck is put together, I think you have a decent chance of coordinating for ECL, because you've got Shielded on 3, and you've got all 3 of your 2-drops are 3 bodies. So you have good odds of actually coordinating by the time you can ECL Ayla. that is really like your only ECL target. So I think if I were piloting this deck, I'd probably throw in a third one because, I mean, I guess you can ECL the Aether Sprite for a, you can double up on that ability. Maybe if you need to clean up space, or maybe, ECL Kanan earlier in the game. I'm not sure what else you're doing with ECL in this. But, kudos to Agnox, however you pronounce that, for, making a top 8. Going on to small tournament in Italy. Lots of Bosk in this one. They've got a pretty crazy control meta out in Italy, apparently, except for the fact that ECL Sabine came out on top. So, way to go there. So, some smaller tournaments out in Europe, give us some interesting trends. We got Krennic actually up here. Missed that. Krennic cracking a top 8. But now we're going to go back to, this is our big planetary qualifier that took place in Italy. So let's take a look at this. 127 players. Here's the juicy stuff. This is what we're all here for. Let's find out what's coming up on top of something like this. And as you can see, we've got a Cad Bane Tarkentown taking the tournament with 127 players. A little bit of a shocker for me. Obviously, this is a good deck. And, we've got some strong decks up here and a couple of interesting ones. Definitely we'll take a look at the this deck list. I kind of want to see what this Han Green deck list is all about. And then definitely want to see what a Chancellor Palp Tarkentown brought to a tournament like this and placed well. So let's start with Cad. We got some classics with Greedo and Bazine, Crafty Smuggler. This is all pretty standard Cad. A little bit surprised that there aren't any Relentless Pursuits, not even in the sideboard. I think that card in this deck, because of how many bounty hunters you actually have, the capture and then the shield, all, I think it makes enough sense in this deck. But maybe it's just too much capture with your run if you're running Cad as well, Cad unit. Now there are two of them really good in this shell. You've got two really strong cards in 5-drops where if you get this, if you are able to do this on turn 2, you'll put down any of your turn 1 plays, and then if you're able to have the event and the 5-drop in your hand, Bosk is coming out to snipe any turn 1 play. I mean, virtually any turn 1 play, and then Zuckuss as well just hits a 6/6 hitting the floor on turn 2 is just pretty hard to deal with. The one thing I will say though is if when I'm thinking about piloting this deck, going into a field where, from what I'm seeing, there's going to be a lot of Tarkentowns, I'm a little worried about relying on this. I mean, I doubt. Obviously, this guy won, and I doubt he's solely relying on that strong turn 2 play. But in my play testing, what I found a lot is, I'll play the, now there are two of them. I'll get my 5-drop out. It'll get attacked by my opponent's turn 1 play, or it'll get sniped by some, it'll take damage somehow, and then the Tarkentown just comes out turn 2 to finish it off. So something to consider if you're expecting to go into like a heavy Tarkentown field. But all in all, solid deck. Maybe, if I were going in, I probably would have buffed up space a little bit more. Maybe taken out the waylays or one of the McClunkies and maybe one other card to fit in, like those Space Sentinels, because it has Underworld tag as well. Oh, yeah, there it is right there. Yeah, sideboarded. Makes sense, Depends on what you expect to see. And let's talk about this Han Green that took third. Interesting to see what we have going on. Greedo Cloud Rider. Yeah, this card. Surprised he's only running 2 copies of this. I just think this card is so good. Obviously, we've got DJs and Techs. Echo-based Defender. Sentinel at 3-drop. That's something that I think I don't see a lot of Han decks is even running any Sentinels to try and, protect and be a little mid-rangey into aggro, but solid card right there. Kira's, Plo Koons, are they running? And they're not running now there are 2 of them either. Interesting. The Enfy's Nest. So pretty heavy top end. With, we got Home Ones, Han Solos, and Enfy's Nests. With resupply. So you're ramping so that you have access to, with Han's ability, you'll have access to a 7-cost card, on turn 5, which can be really strong. Some Sundari Peacekeepers in the sideboard. 3 Spark of Rebellions is just a good card. The Falcons, obviously, that's a given. Pretty interesting deck. I'd love to see some gameplay of this. I'd love to see a strong Han pilot take this deck and be able to watch it live, because I do like what is going on here. Maybe I'll just have to copy it or do my own version of it for the channel at some point, because I like what's going on here. Let's talk about this Palp Tarkentown, which, oh man, yeah. So we are in space for sure. Only 7 ground units. 2 of them are Persuader tanks. Ketsu's an interesting choice. Ketsu's an interesting choice if you're going to put anything on the ground. I wonder what the reasoning is behind that. No descriptions, obviously. Yeah, 1-drops. These are pretty important in Palp. You want something that, especially this one, you want something that will die pretty easily if you have the opportunity to. At least if you are trying to get in some early villain cards. But yeah, we are most certainly in space here. Be interesting to see. Well, this is, once again, like, I just want to see this live, and this is something that, might be interested in running my version of. I don't have any of these guys, so that would make it a little tough. But very, very interesting. Yeah, obviously, like, space, these heavy space decks are coming full swing this season. You've got to prepare. If you're preparing a deck for any sort of, Store Showdown, Planetary Qualifier, you've got to figure out how to deal with guys that are showing up with this stuff. Because if you don't, you are in for a quick night. Probably heading out pretty quickly if you can't stop something like this that's coming at you with, A-Wings, Interceptors, Lurking Ties. Yeah, the fact that this deck has access to all of that is pretty crazy. Space is strong. Ray Tarkentown. Oop, did I do that wrong? A Ray Tarkentown making its way into a top 8. Regional Governors going in main deck is interesting. This is a deck that was prevalent in the last set, But I do want to see if they added anything from set 3, or maybe change something. Yeah, perilous position is just so good, so good in blue. Only one Jedi lightsaber, I guess, because she's buffing up units anyways. Yeah, this is a pretty solid Rey list. Pretty solid here. Nothing that's really jumping out besides the regional governors. Makes sense. You can turn this into a 2-5, and then next in the phase after that, turn it into a 3-6, if that's what you need. So creates a nice body. Sideboard. Splashing one Krayt Dragon, I think, is a little interesting in the main deck. Just comes in pretty late. Interesting choice. Interesting. All right, so this also breaks down the deck count. How many versions of these decks did we see? 10 Django Tarkin Towns, 24 Sabine ECLs, 6 Anakin Blues, 12 Bosk Blues, 4 Vader Greens. That's interesting. 24 Sabine ECLs showing up to a PQ. That's like a fifth, right? Quick math. That's like a fifth of the field. So, obviously Sabine ECL, it just is where this game is at right now. 9 Han Solo yellows, 9 cunning yellows. I'm trying to translate to Italian here. Obviously, Sabine being the big one here. 12 Bosk Blues. Interesting. And, I think it is telling that a CAD Tarkin Town, which is, tempo, but, obviously floats more mid-range than Sabine, came out on top. Pretty interesting to think about, going into a field of 127 players. You've got, odds are he certainly faced at least one, probably another ECL mathematically. And they also have a link to a live stream if you want to watch commentary on each game. They've got it embedded in the website. So I would definitely encourage you, if you're paying attention to this stuff, then I would highly recommend going and watching this. So that was the big one, the planetary qualifier. It said up there that it was a delayed from set 2, originally scheduled during set 2. It was delayed. And the perks of that is that we have, new cards in a slightly different meta to play into it. And then middle of December here, we've got once again some 30 to 40 player stuff. Han 2 Blue. This is another deck where I think it's really good, and I think that there are certain things like bringing in a Poe that's a 6/4 on turn 3 is pretty insane. And I'm surprised that a Han 2 Blue did this well going into a field of what I'm assuming is just heavy Tarkin Town. Sabine is the only 2-cost unit that he has. Excuse me. So he is playing this is pretty standard Han from last set. There's nothing really. I think the perilous position I can see is the only set 3 card that's even in here. And it's a good one. But I mean, the whole Tarkin Town thing is just, I mean, it scares me to run a deck like this where you're playing stuff and damaging it into, heavy Tarkin Town. But, obviously in a, 28 player tournament, you didn't have to worry about it too much. And we have 3 Tarkin Town bases in the top 8, all with different leaders, interestingly. Let's check out this Yoda Blue that took second, see what's different than what I did in my last video. I've seen a couple decks running C-3PO for Yoda, and it feels a little slow to me trying to get that combo, because ideally, like, you're using a unit's leaving, and then you're looking at your card with Yoda, and then when you attack with C-3PO, you're drawing that card, obviously, because you've seen it and you know its cost. But the setup for that seems a little slow. So I'll be interested to see how well this actually works. But this is a common thing I see is 1 or 2 C-3POs going into this deck. Queels, just a common 3/2. That's an interesting choice. Splashing a tech in there. Play set of Bendu's, which I did not have in mind, unfortunately. And a lot of you in the comments were mentioning how Ray would be pretty strong in what I was trying to do, and I agree. I just don't have the card. You're My Only Hope. Mentioned that in the beginning, is something I think I need to work into that deck. 2 Rivals Falls. It's a little interesting, but I think in double blue, it just that card just kind of deserves to be in the conversation. And sideboarding a couple Aether Sprites to deal with space. Zillow Beast. The cool thing about Zillow Beast, and it's something I didn't really highlight in gameplay, it didn't ever really come up, but using Zillow Beast to discard obviously lets you take care of anything on the board. Even like potentially a Crate Dragon. So I like having at least one in the deck. Oh, he's splashing 1. I'm assuming for that reason. But overall, like, pretty much the same. A little different in the early, and then splashing a Razor Crest too. I like Razor Crest. I just didn't quite crack. I mean, it would have been like a sideboard option for sure. Quinlan Tarkin Town. Yeah, a lot of. You definitely have to keep your unit cost spread out. This mathematically looks like a pretty good curve. Yeah, this deck is strong. Exclusively unique units in the ground. The A-Wing is the only non-unique unit in the deck, which is interesting. Force throw is pretty good. Man, Ezra, I have slept on this card in the past, and as I've been testing with Hero Yellow, Ezra is so good. I'm going to talk about that more later this week. Yeah, 3 Tarkin Town, CAD Tarkin Towns to round out this 32-player tournament top 8. Got some more Ray in there. And there's that Palpatine Blue. More Palpatine Red. Iden Blue. So we're seeing, well, how about this for this tournament with some, albeit it's 24 players, but ended up split right down the middle with Hero and Villainy. which is interesting. And yeah, just look at how many Tarkin towns, half of the playing field is running Tarkin Town. This is kind of what I'm talking about. It's all, that has been weighing on my mind a lot. Lots of cat in this one. How about this? A Fennec Tarkin Town taking away a 20-player showdown. 20 players is 20 players. But yeah, I definitely encourage you guys to check that out. Because that's just a baller move right there to win a showdown with a Fennec. So that's what we've had over the past couple weeks tournament wise. I think the big takeaway from this is that Tarkin Town is the meta now. It is one of, if not the most popular rare base being used right now, besides obviously Energy Conversion Lab and ECL Sabine. And it's strong, and you've got to prepare for it. So later this week, taking a deck to another constructed Friday tournament at my local game store. Definitely be bringing the camera over there and recording how it goes. And I will catch you all then. See you in the next one.